This is the Brabus Bodo. It's a €1 million, 1,000 horsepower Hyper GT Coupe, a car that's going to see the high priests of horsepower enter an entirely new era. An era that looks pretty evil. Coming up, we wonder why there's real gold in the air it takes, reveal what the Bodo is based on, hint it's not a Mercedes, and take you inside the Brabus factory where they make this, whatever that actually is. It's a 2+2 GT car, which is actually what I reckon is what a proper Gran Turismo should be. So it's a long bonnet, rear-wheel drive, slightly fear-inducing styling. And under that long bonnet is a good old-fashioned V12. Wait, what? No hybrid or electrical assistance? Well, no, because this goes some way to show Brabus's purity of thought. So what we've got here is a 5.2 litre V12 petrol with 2 turbos, driving the rear wheels through an 8-speed transaxle and paddles on the steering wheel. It's a largely full-fat, old-school recipe in a world of slightly low-calorie modern performance cars. And as for performance, well, I happen to think that this car is probably just as much about the experience as the raw performance figures, although it also has raw performance figures, 0 to 62 miles an hour in just over 3 seconds and a top speed of 224 miles an hour, which is acceptable. It is the styling that has me captivated though. Now Brabus has always had quite an intimate relationship with the colour black, but the Bodo, sat here, specced as it is, has an almost gothic sense of occasion. It is very black. Exposed carbon fibre bonnet, black. Badges, in black. Wheels, black. Calipers, black. Rear spoiler, black. This front wing is all one piece of carbon fibre, painted black. Grille, black. Rear, black, although they're gunmetal. It's named after the Brabus's founder, Bodo Bushman, and there are some little references to 1977, which was the year the company was founded here in Bottrop in Germany. But I have to say, the Bodo's got a kind of romance about it, simply because of the proportions. Just take a quick look at this profile. It's got a very short front overhang, a long bonnet, a tight cab, and then this almost boat tail rear. Now, people will talk about golden ratios and the like. All I know is this thing looks most excellent. The Bodo is fully bespoke, carbon fibre bodied and weighs 1,910 kilograms, which sounds heavy, but this is a really big car. And if any of those specs sound familiar, it's because the bare bones of this thing are actually Aston Martin Vanquish, which is a good thing because I absolutely love that car. But everything on the outside is different. The window line is pretty much the same, as you might expect, but you'd be hard pressed to figure it out unless someone pointed it out. We're into the realms of coach building, where the bones of something epic is clothed in the flesh of something entirely different. Think of it as couture car building. It's the same fabric, it's just been reworked. The front has more of a kind of menacing Mercedes flavour with these LED lights, and then there's lots of inlets for the oil coolers, big grille, some massive nostrils, and then it's got this vent on the top surface of the bonnet which flows out and over the windscreen, and there is a lot of exposed carbon fibre. I really like how these headlights integrate with these little air curtains here which channel air out and over the front wheels, and then how that movement pops out over this front wheel arch. Slightly concave 21-inch monoblocks wrapped in bespoke Continental tyres. And then as you come down the side of the car, it's actually quite plain. It's got a concave side with a relatively small sill, which moves all the way down the car over this massive rear haunch into a kind of a boat tail that drops away and keeps on dropping. In fact, it drops all the way down to another little bit of aero on the back here, which sort of reminds me a little bit of a Porsche 911. And then you notice the multi-point rear lights, which, because they go all the way to the edge of the car, when you stand behind it, it looks really wide. Personally, I am not entirely convinced by the light-up Brabus badge, but I like the horizontal nature of the rear end, this negative space, and then these stacked rectangular exhausts. It does have a lot of immediate presence.
Actually, it's got the look of something like the Vision Mercedes Maybach 6 from 2016, a concept car that brought style to excess and caricature, but in a way that made you want to lick it. In fact, Mercedes has repeatedly teased us with cool stuff but not followed through. Accelero, the 6, the Vision Iconic, but Brabus is different because you can actually buy one, albeit not based on a Mercedes.
Before we get to the interior proper, I just wanted to come back here to the engine bay to point out a couple of things. Well, three actually. The first are the Brabus carbon airboxes, which if you look closely, have little flecks of gold in them. The second is this engine, which is so far back from the actual front of the car that it could warm your knees in the cabin. And the third is this strut brace, which is basically the fourth road bridge.
That's real gold, by the way, just because they could.
And once you get onto the inside, guess what the predominant colour is? It's baby blue! It's not, it's black. And yes, when you get on the inside, there are slightly more Aston Martin Vanquish bits that you can recognise, albeit they are Mercedes bits. But in this case, they're definitely Brabus bits. And you wouldn't forget because the Brabus logo is pretty much everywhere on the inside of this car. It's on the speakers. There's a Bodo Bushman signature, it's on the brake pedal, it's on the footrest, it's on the steering wheel, it's on the little mode selector knob here, it's in the vents, it's on the backs of the seats, the top of the seats, the back seats, and on the mats down there. And everything appears to have gone a bit quilty. So everything has been quilted to within an inch of its life. It's on the seats, it's on the transmission tunnel, on the mats, it's on the back panel. It does make it feel quite kind of luxurious and enclosed. It's got some lovely sausagey leather on these big seats, which are actually really comfortable. Big, thick rimmed wheel, which I'm not a massive fan of, because look at this. It's a really, very heavy wheel. And then it's got this driver's display with this kind of aerodynamic cover. And yes, there are recognisable bits of graphics from the Vanquish, but that's fine, because it means this car has all the modern things like advanced driver assistance systems and things like Apple CarPlay Ultra, which are useful when you're actually going to do Gran Turismo things in a GT car. It does also have a full glass panoramic roof, which makes it less like the coffin of a depressed gothic vampire. And back there are two seats, which are basically there for adults you don't like or children that you do. Generally though, this feels like a proper experience. Everything is either leather or carbon. You would never forget what this car is made of. And the view out is through this slightly shortened windscreen over a massive bonnet. You can just see the intake on the front of the bonnet and it looks awesome. This feels like a proper superhero car. So in the centre console you get this wide display, which is all your usual stuff. Metal knobs for volume, temperature, all that kind of stuff. You can make the exhaust louder, you can change the suspension, everything that you'd see on an Aston Martin. There's cup holders and indeed places to charge your mobile phone and various other bits and bobs. This is a remarkably practical car. It's even got a boot.
It also has a decent amount of luggage space. More quilting. But behind that luggage is this little plaque back here. Now, this proclaims that this Bodo is a masterpiece specification, which means that it is a car that's been in Bottrop and given the full house best of the best treatment. This is a proper Brabus piece. It also carries the spec of the car. And I'd just like to point out that it says it is black on black with black leather, black with black on black with some more black. And that takes Brabus from a mere tuner into a coach builder, which isn't that big a step, to being an independent vehicle manufacturer, which is a big step. But Brabus has never forgotten where it comes from, even if the Bodo is where it's going. So I thought I'd take a quick look at Brabus as a company. Which means we've got to check out Brabus headquarters, which is where we'll find other Bodos in production. This one is obviously visible carbon fibre and quite green. But they don't just produce Bodos here, they also produce everything else.
Brabus isn't just some fly-by-night tuner. Founded in 1977 in West Germany by Bodo Buschmann and Klaus Brackmann, the name is a portmanteau of Brackmann and Buschmann. Brabus was Buschmann's idea, but German law at the time required new businesses to be established by at least 2 people. Legend has it that Klaus then immediately sold Bodo his company shares for €100, leaving Bodo holding the tuner-shaped reins. The first ever Brabus was technically a W116 Mercedes S-Class. Bodo, the son of a Mercedes-Benz dealer, was forced to trade in his Porsche 911 for a Mercedes if he wanted to park at the dealership. So he set about making his Merc outperform his 911. But that was a personal project. The first official Brabus was a W126 S-Class with a 5-litre V8. They are not cheap, but pricing up a new Brabus isn't easy either. You can buy some separate styling items like wheels, send a car to Brabus and have it converted, get Brabus to source you a new vehicle, or just buy a car from the company. And there are levels to Brabus, from mild tuning and styling to full-on heart transplants and re-engineerings like the Bodo. And that's not even mentioning the official collaborations with companies like Smart, special editions and tuning of other manufacturers. Brabus has a lot of fingers in a lot of pies. The company is now run by Bodo's son Konstantin, who took over after his father passed in 2018, keeping the vision in the family. And Brabus is bigger than ever.
But how about this? This is a Brabus Rocket GTS, and it's a fixed-head coupe based on the Mercedes-Benz SL63 E-Performance. Like the Bodo, it's got about 1,000 horsepower, but in this case, it gets an 800 horsepower V8 coupled with 200 horsepower of electrical assistance. And a bit like the Bodo, it's also a fully carbon fibre bodied car. In fact, the only bits of Merc that are really left are the headlights and the windshield. But this is again into that coach building area. The Bodo takes it to the next level. This is the previous step. And if you do want to keep the wind in your hair, then they also make this, the GTC. Of course, we couldn't visit Brabus without mention of the venerable G-Wagen, and this is probably peak G, because this is a Rocket 900. Now this comes with a 4-litre petrol twin-turbo V8 from Mercedes-Benz, and then Brabus bore and stroked that engine to 4.5 litres so that it produces 900 horsepower, which is adequate. There is a wide arch kit, lots of visible carbon fibre, and it's interesting here that this is a Rocket, so it's limited in production, but it's also a masterpiece car. Now a masterpiece doesn't have to have the massive engine, it can just be a full house interior refit. So you can have a masterpiece that's not a Rocket, but a Rocket is always a masterpiece. But if you want something even more extreme, then how about this? This is a Brabus XLP. Now the XL part denotes that this car is on portal axles, and the P says that this has a pickup bed, which Mercedes never built. So essentially, the entire back half of this car is carbon fibre and entirely custom built. It's essentially a Mercedes 4x4 squared, except more extreme. And yes, the purple does continue on the inside. Interestingly, this marine board that lines the back of the pickup is the same stuff they use on the decks of the Brabus boats. And yes, Brabus also does boats.
Plus there's a 6x6 version. It's a G with 50% more axle.
With Brabus, it really is all about the detail. You don't want to have this massive custom colour interior retrim and then have slightly nasty Mercedes silver switches. So what they do is they take the interior to pieces completely, get all the bits, and then change the colour. And you really can have anything you want to match your new insides. So this is a kind of a gunmetal colour, and then this is obviously red, but they'll take something like the seat adjusters and take the entire unit to pieces and then repaint it. And they even take apart the buttons so that they still light up when you press them. This is obviously for a car with a red interior, and then this is a rather lovely shade of blue. When things get super serious in the horsepower department, these 4-litre V8 engines come here to Brabus's engine department, where they are bored and stroked to 4.5 litres, given new turbochargers and a whole suite of new electrics. Engine-y. This will become a Brabus crawler, which is essentially what happens when Brabus has no limits whatsoever. It's based very loosely on a G63. And one thing you might not know about Brabus is if you want something a little bit more elegant, they also do ground-up restorations of classic Mercedes-Benz.
And yes, they'll make you any interior you want, from any colour. These are crawler carbon buckets ready to go into the car we saw earlier. But there's more. Brabus also makes the Brabus Big Boy, the company's first motorhome, and black, of course. It stuffed a V8 into a Viano, even Brabusized a Unimog, and now deals in boats, bikes and islands. Yes, there's a Brabus Island currently under construction in Abu Dhabi, and the CGI certainly looks ambitious.
So there you have it, a little look at the world of Brabus. After nearly 50 years of making cars just a little bit madder, it's good to see that imagination still runs wild in Germany. Now, where did they put the keys to that Bodo?